you teach reading or language arts, you've heard the buzzword or the term close reading. The problem is we aren't really trained in how to do it or given the correct resources to execute it in the correct way. My name is Chloe Taskoff from Lucky Clover Writing, and today on the Expert Educators channel, I am interviewing Shelly Rees from Appletastic Learning. Shelly is going to go through close reading, why it's important, what the steps are, and give some resources to get started or get practicing on it. Hi Shelly, thank you for being on Expert Educators today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you.
I'm really excited to have you on as well. So could you just tell us who you are and a little bit about your teaching experience?
Sure. So my name is Shelly Rees, and the name of my blog is Appletastic Learning. I taught in the upper elementary grades for over 23 years, and I loved almost every moment of it. But through that time, I gained a great amount of experience in helping my young learners learn how to read better and to read in a deeper level, and as well as the other subjects that I taught every single day. I miss being in the classroom, but it was a great experience. And now I'm helping other teachers full-time around the world by creating resources and offering professional development opportunities.
Yes, and I've used some of your resources in my classroom. I'm not in the classroom anymore, but I've actually used your close reading in my classroom, which is kind of,
Awesome.
our topic for today. Yes, and so I'm excited to be talking about it because I think it really helped my fourth graders because I taught fourth grade. So before we get into close reading, can you just tell us a little bit about why you started Appletastic Learning?
Sure. So I had, as I said, I had been in the classroom for many years, and I had all of these great ideas that sometimes other teachers in the building would come to me for advice or for help, and I wanted to put them out there so that I could reach a larger audience of teachers and help teachers in a bigger way. So I put together Appletastic Learning, and it just has grown and blossomed since then, and I'm just really pleased to be helping teachers through that site and through the things that I create and share.
Awesome. That sounds great. So let's kind of step into close reading for a second, or I guess not a second, but the whole time that we're talking. So what is close reading and why is it important? And I kind of want to touch on that for a second because I feel like we hear about close reading all the time, but no one really teaches us how to teach it. It's right. Kind of like a buzzword, and they want you to do it, but I mean, we don't really get training.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a common problem, I would say, with a lot of teachers is they know they want their students to read at a deeper level and to have a deeper connection with the text, but they're not quite sure how to get from that surface level reading down to that deeper meaning. So close reading is really a thoughtful, critical analysis of text. And I know that sounds real technical and analytical. Close reading is analytical, but you will guide your students step by step down through it so it doesn't seem such an overwhelming task to them. Students are going to use a variety of strategies to gain a deeper meaning of any passage that they're reading.
That kind of gives, just a clearer definition of what it is, and from there, I'd like to just break it down a little bit for our viewers. And I know that your products with close reading, and you even have at least one free close reading product. It breaks it down for the students and for the teacher. So could you kind of break down the steps for us?
Sure, absolutely. Before I do that, however, I do want to tell you a couple of things that close reading is and close reading is not, because it's really important for us to understand the difference between, I've gone into a classroom to substitute or to work with a teacher, and they have assigned 3 chapters of a book for a student to annotate and to close read, and that's not what it is intended to be. That would be entirely overwhelming for a student, quite inappropriate actually. So close reading is not using a really long passage or an entire book. It's not totally having the student independent on their own. You're going to be working with them. They're going to be working with other students to share. It's not a lot of basic level recall questions. And it's not really a one-day lesson. You can't do a close read at a deep level in a one lesson time chunk, okay? Mm-hmm. So close reading is using a shorter passage to develop that meaning and to make those connections. You're going to spread it out over several days, and I'm going to outline that for you in just a minute. But you're going to spread that out so that students are going to work from that surface level meaning with questions that are going to guide them down through, so that at the end they've made a connection with this text. And so that's what close reading is and what it is not.
Okay, yeah, that's actually super helpful. Okay. I almost want to take notes while you're talking. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay, so let me go ahead now and I'll talk about the 6 steps that I've broken close reading down into, and I'll guide you through those 6 steps now. So the first step would be that students are going to do a first reading of the text. They're provided with a passage. I like to keep my passages at 1 page at 5th grade level, and I have a lot of those in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, passages, over 140 of them that teachers can pick from.
Wow.
And students are going to read that passage independently the very first time. You're not going to set background for them, which kind of goes against what we're used to as teachers. We're used to setting up that background knowledge. But if you think about it in real life, when students are going to be reading something, or if they're in a testing situation, you're not going to be there to set background knowledge for them. So they need to learn how to delve into a passage, a 1-page passage at 5th grade level, on their own and independently. And basically this first read is just surface level. They're going to figure out, what is this passage mostly about? And that's the question you would ask. So what is this passage about? And they should be able to answer you in 1 or 2 sentences. And so this is all about what is on the surface. That's the first step. The second step is time to annotate. And in this step, students are going to use an annotation guide, which I provide along with all of my passages. Students have a guide that is glued into their notebook. They pretty much have those annotation marks learned and memorized after we've gone through this process a few times. But you can put posters up on the wall. You can, you really need to take the time to teach the annotation marks. Don't just hand them a guide and say, here, annotate. Right. You have to model this and teach it first. Yes. Otherwise, yeah, have you ever given a student a highlighter and before you know it, like their whole page is highlighted?
Oh yes, I definitely have experience with that.
So you're going to have them circle powerful words and phrases, identify things that they don't understand, and mark the parts of the text that they are connecting with. And then I have them write important thoughts that they're having or ideas that they're having in the margins of the text. It's fine for them to completely mark up this text with thoughts and feelings that they have as they are reading. Then, okay, so that's probably all you're going to want to accomplish on the first or the second day. You don't want to go through all of this within 1 day. Once again, I think it would be overwhelming for students. So the next time you pull out the passage, we're going to do a second reading. This time, I as the teacher or you as the teacher are going to read the same passage aloud. You're going to read it with expression. You're going to read it with great fluency. You're going to pause throughout the text, and you're going to model some think alouds. So this time, students are going to, they're already familiar with what the text is about because they've read it on their own one time. This time, you're showing them a deeper level understanding of the text. And you can also, you can put that text right up on your interactive whiteboard, and you can model how you would annotate the passage too during the second reading.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on step 4, which is unfamiliar words. Students are going to select 4 to 5 words, and I would say that would be the maximum that I would do, 4 to 5 words from the passage, and they're going to work to identify meanings for those words. Create sample sentences, list antonyms and synonyms, or draw an illustration. So they're going to explore the meaning of these new words, and it's going to help them once again to begin to connect with the text at a deeper level.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right, and then we're on step 5 now. We are on the third reading. Okay, so we've first of all, we have read this passage independently. We've read it as a class where I have modeled for them fluency and expression. And now they're going to read it again independently. And this may be on a third day, okay?
Okay.
And now they've seen the passage twice, they've annotated it, they have identified the main idea. Now they're really ready to gain that deeper meaning. And at this point, they should be ready to answer questions which are going to require them to make inferences and to support their answers with text evidence. So all of those things should be in place. And with this third reading, they're really going to be like, aha, I get it. I understand it. And it's great to see the light bulbs go off during that third reading. And then the 6th and final step that I would do with a close read would be to give the students some more difficult questions to answer. Once again, these questions are going to require students to provide an answer, but then to support that answer with text evidence. We know now that this is really important for students to be able to do. If you've ever monitored a state assessment or anything like that, you know that students are required to provide text evidence. So it's really important that we provide opportunity for students to practice that on a regular basis. And once those questions are complete, students can respond to the text through writing. And usually what I have them do is just write a well-developed paragraph summary of the text. So by this time, they have worked through this text. They know this text inside and out. And writing a 1-paragraph summary should not be a big deal for them. They should be able to do it almost from memory because they're going to know the text that well. So those are the 6 steps in a nutshell of close reading that I follow.
So what do you think is probably the biggest obstacle maybe when trying to teach close reading?
Yeah, so I think the biggest obstacle, of course, would be to get your students to buy into the process. You have to convince them that it is going to be worth the time, effort that they're going to have to put in. And so you have to, I think the one way that I counteract that or counterattack that, I guess, would be to provide a reading passage that is going to be really high interest for students. Because if I'm providing them with a boring passage, which I know they're going to come across boring things to read later on in life, I get that. And even on the stage of assessments, it might not be the most exciting passage. But if we can practice with passages that are really interesting and fun to read, students are going to buy into the process a little bit better.
Yes, and you want them to, gain the skills once they buy in, and then, develop the close reading habits. Then they can apply it to texts that they're not as interested in.
Absolutely.
On the standardized tests.
Yes.
I did also run into that issue with both my 8th graders and my 4th graders. You know, they're like, why are we reading this, 5 times or whatever? And that's, a really good strategy, is just to find those high interest passages. And I know in your bundles of close reading, you have tons of engaging and high interest passages as well. I kind of featured I featured the your cookie freebie in the videos for this one. Yes, so
one of my favorites.
oh yeah, I am sure that my 4th graders would have loved to read about chocolate chip cookies. And even when you have those high interest passages, you can kind of make, I guess, a full lesson or day out of it. If my kids are reading about chocolate chip cookies, I can bring in, cookies and milk or
absolutely. There's nothing better than a cookie while you're reading, right?
Exactly. Maybe it'll, keep them on task better. Yeah. So, what are your favorite ways, or I guess, what are some strategies that you can use during close reading to differentiate to students and meet all of them at the level they're at?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think first of all, make sure that the reading passage is on the student's level. So one of the things that I've done, and you'll see it in the free passage, which we'll link up here. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I have done is I make sure that there are 2 levels of each passage within each packet. And so if we're talking about the chocolate chip cookie passage, for example, it's offered at a 3rd and 4th grade level, and it's also offered at a 5th through 7th about grade level. Okay. And so you can give students the passage that matches their ability level. Also, what I would say is if students are at a lower level and they're going to struggle with a certain passage, I would suggest you can alter the steps of the close reading a little bit. I really like students to do that first step independently, but you may have learners who just cannot do that. So in that case, I would take a small group or a pair of students back to a table, and I would do the first read with them, because you want to guarantee success. And if they are going to feel defeated right off the bat, that's probably not a good thing. And there's no probably about it. It's just not a good thing. You want your students to feel successful right out of the gate. And if you've got higher level students, you want to challenge them. So, it's still important for them to go through those steps to go from the surface level questions all the way down to those deeper level questions. And when you get to the deeper level questions, they may be able to be challenged a little bit more than students who struggle a little bit with that.
So, why do you think it's important to trust educators for curriculum, or I guess to trust your colleagues to provide you with lesson plans and curriculum to use?
Oh, I love this question. Because who knows students better than somebody who has been in the classroom and who has worked with students directly and who has tested these resources or passages or whatever you're using in the classroom. To me, it just makes so much sense that teachers are the experts. Teachers know. There's actually a hashtag movement through Teachers Pay Teachers called #TeachersKnow. And it's amazing what educators know. We need to trust our teachers. They are highly qualified. So I would say anybody who's been in the classroom, who has worked with students, who has a good understanding of pedagogy and of learning in general, they're your experts. Go with them.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly why I started this YouTube channel, is because I feel like teachers need to be recognized as, or educators, counselors, anybody in the field need to be recognized as the experts. And people need to stop, I guess, thinking that they know how to teach just because they went through school or because
Right.
they're a politician or
Right.
you know where I'm coming from there.
I do. I totally get it.
So yes, and that movement, it from Teachers Pay Teachers directly aligns with this channel. So I thought it was kind of cool that they are kind of promoting it now. At least I saw
Yes,
Instagram and Facebook.
Yes,
exactly. So I'm planning on reaching out to Teachers Pay Teachers as well about all of this.
Wonderful.
So before we get to my last question, if our viewers have any questions they want to ask you, what is the best way to contact you?
I would say on Instagram, it's at Shelly.Rees. So just connect with me on Instagram, message me there, and it's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. So it's at Shelly.Rees. Okay. And you can also find me on my blog, which is Appletastic Learning.
Okay, great. That sounds good. And what is, I guess, the main idea that that you want to kind of leave our teacher viewers with today?
Okay, so the big picture that I want to leave teachers with, the big idea, is that you can do close reading. And I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by the process. When you break it down into those 6 steps, it's so manageable. And it's just going to take a little piece of time each day until you work through all 3 readings of the passage. And your students are going to become confident, independent readers. It is amazing what can happen with readers who are a little reluctant, readers who struggle a little bit when they gain a little bit of confidence. And close reading, guys, is the way to make it happen. I promise you, I guarantee it can happen.
Perfect. Thank you. And I've actually seen that in my classroom. Once the kids start to get in writing or reading, I've never taught math, but once they get that confidence and they know they can do it, it's a game changer.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Shelly, for being on Expert Educators today. It was a pleasure having you and hearing more about close reading.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.